What is good? It's your boy Roy, and it's another episode of Sync Gems. Today, we have an interesting live episode with Phil Lober, aka also Flobe. Phil Lober is his full name, and he has had placements like Black Widow, Avengers. Lately he got, which one was it? Shazam. He is a killer composer. One of the best out there in my opinion too. But that's just my opinion and a bunch of others' opinion. So, insane trailer composer. And I love his live streams. I love his personality. As I said, we chilled here a few times in Bali. He even visited my studio, created some music. This interview was long, so I split it into two. In the first part, which you're gonna listen to now, we talk about Phil's workshop in Singapore and talked about artists being blacklisted from libraries. We talk about the process of making music and when you should probably stop producing a track. We talk about orchestration. We talk about the challenges Phil had working with a live orchestra and orchestrators and the human experience that went behind that. We talk about what it means to be a successful trailer composer today. We talk about style combinations and what Kirby has to do with success in sync. So, I know you're going to enjoy this one. If you want to support the podcast, please go ahead, rate and review the podcast. Follow it on the platform you're listening to it on. This really helps me, and it helps other people who want to see content like this. I am still offering one-on-one sync coaching sessions. And the reason I'm doing that is because I know that the fastest and most efficient way to elevate in this game is mentorship and community. These are two things that I didn't get in the beginning of my way, but understood how valuable they are. This is why I do one-on-ones. And I love to hear about student success too. I enjoy it almost as much as I enjoy my own success in sync. So I hope to help you on your journey. If that's something you're interested in, just hit me up via socials. And without further ado, my man, Phil Lober.
Cool.
It's going.
It's going.
What's going?
What's going on?
I don't know, man. You tell me what's going on. You're here in Bali.
We're here in person.
And we are in person. This is for real.
Damn.
Yeah. It's like reality shit.
Yeah. It's a long time coming too, because I actually never thought I would even be here. Like when we first interviewed, I was in LA and I was living in Mexico. So it was like, damn, this coming here is like a whole new world. So yeah, man, it's going pretty good. Just composing here in Indonesia, and on my way to Malaysia soon. So yeah, it's been a relaxing time, and also a roller coaster at the same time, as traveling is. But it is what it is.
Where did you travel from LA?
From LA, went to Singapore. So in Singapore, was doing a master class.
Right, with Greg, right?
Yeah, with Gregory Tan.
Yeah, shout out.
Super talented guy.
Yeah.
And just a great support. And we did a master class with about 30 students. And it was a beautiful room in La Salle University. Shout out again. And it went pretty smooth. I mean, we had 2 classes, and the students were very curious about particular things. Some questions were consistent. A lot of the students were very interested in blacklisting, I noticed. Trailer composers getting blacklisted.
What is that?
So
I didn't know. I don't know about that.
Yeah, Yeah, there's some blacklisting that goes on in the trailer world that well, I won't talk about composers per se, but I will say as much. Okay, I'll say this as much about composers as I will, which is that like certain composers who talk about the process in public, like we're doing now. So I'm trying to be careful about it, but if a composer was to be like, oh yeah, it was a great project, the supervisor, his name was this and he asked for this and I did this, and they go and they put it on a public article, then most likely the film department's going to be like, yeah, let's not work with that guy again. That's as far as composers go. And I mean, it's not a common thing to be blacklisted as a composer. That takes a really big decision on the company's part. And it's only like maybe 2 composers I know of the names of that have been in that unfortunate position.
Because they've talked publicly about who they worked with, and they were under like an NDA or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. They were, or just a spiritual NDA too. Sometimes like a contract isn't signed, but you're still like, it's very obvious that you have to keep it quiet. And this goes back to a thing that happened with some more known composers on a more known trailer track. And yeah, so ever since that happened, then people at film companies have been like, no public talking.
Yeah.
It's just with a few particular film companies that do this. But what's more common is actually tracks getting blacklisted, or libraries getting blacklisted, right? Like certain loops, certain samples have been so overused that I wouldn't say supervisors per se, but maybe the supervisor, they won't want that track to be forward through the pyramid because they see it as an overused sample, or they see it as like, oh, this is overplayed, it's not fresh, it's not original. So that's like a spiritual blacklist. It's not like they have a list of things they don't want to hear. It's more just like, okay, everybody knows that this library is overused, so we're not going to do that. But yeah, so a lot of students were curious about that, and they were also surprised to hear that like social media was a huge thing in the trailer community. Like most of the community is on either Facebook or LinkedIn, and they do a lot of their marketing on Instagram. So it was an interesting thing for them to find that out, because in Singapore, it's a little more linear. Like the way you progress is like you find a composer, you're an intern for him, and you go through the steps, and then maybe you can be a composer on his side, and then maybe you can get your own projects.
Interesting.
It's not like you're just constantly networking with other composers on Facebook.
And that's in the trailer realm, yeah?
Yeah. And so like Gregory Tan is probably the most famous trailer composer in the entire country. And he's on Facebook. He's on everywhere. We see him everywhere. So he does a good job of networking. And yeah, it was interesting to learn the differences between like the Los Angeles business world and the Singapore business world, and how it all worked. Yeah. Shout out to Anthony Poi for setting that one up. Thanks, man. But yeah. And then after that, just started teaching students online. Some more students online, I should say. I got some students in LA, and then in Malaysia, had some more. But that was a great experience, man. Like just doing that kind of stuff, because again, you get a real sense for what the students are looking for. Some students are looking for like that cash, trying to get that money, and some students just want to learn. Just to learn. They're like, well, I'm in film music, and I guess to broaden my sense of music, I want to learn more about trailer music. So that was a pretty good run. And yeah, that's pretty much been my life. I mean, I've just been working my ass off, writing a bunch of trailer tracks every day. I try to do about 2 skeletons a day. Sometimes it ends up being like 3. And just send them off to different libraries that I'm working with, that we've established a deal with, and yeah, just get it done.
Yeah, 2-3 trailers a day.
Skeletons, I should say. Yeah. Not fully fledged polished tracks. I think I take another day to do polishing.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, so it would take you 2 days to make about 3 tracks, something like that.
I think so. Yeah.
Tracks.
Yeah. I mean, maybe 3. You know, just like to get that extra hour in for the polishing of the third track.
Yeah.
Because, man, like, have you ever made a track and then just the next morning sounds completely different than how you remember? I think we get drunk by sleepiness, and there's something that makes us, like, kind of confident the same way when you get drunk, I guess. And I just end up composing something like, wow, this is so cool. And I want to send it off like that. And then the next morning I notice things like, oh, okay, this is completely not quantized, or like this is coming in too early. And so it's good to actually do that morning test and then adjust your tracks accordingly.
The morning after test.
The morning after test.
Let's go. I mean, like, so I resonate with that. And it's like a double-edged sword, because I feel like sometimes one can overhear their tracks. Like I can hear the tracks so many times where my ears kind of get lazy, and then I make a bunch of mistakes. And the opposite can happen, where I listen to the track again, and then I'm just making too many adjustments, and I'm ruining the essence of the track. And that's been an interesting one. And I think from your angle, I would love to hear how that looks as well, like from an analytical perspective. But also, like, what I've discovered is that I tend to overbake things. Like, I feel like it's a problem every producer has, and even the best, you know.
Overbake, so, like, how do you mean?
Overbaking something, so like you mess with it so much that it loses all its life, basically. Like overbaking a cake. Like you overbake it, it loses all its mush, it loses all the juiciness. So like what I've been doing in the last, I feel like maybe a few months, is I've been making the tracks to the point where I'm like, I'm pretty happy with the result I have right now. Yeah. And then I just pass it on, like I did with you. It was just like, I know with you it was a bit different because I prepared for you to come to my home. So I
that was a great track, dude.
That was fun.
That was a fun skeleton.
But it was but the thing is, like, when I'm thinking, well, this is not going to be the end product, I feel like I am way more free to make creative decisions. And then when I pass it on to somebody like you, or like a Gregory Tan, or like somebody who's fucking amazing and does and knows how it should sound for XYZ, they can go do the whole housekeeping with what I've made, and then add their own flavor. And I feel like there's a lot of people who do it really, really well. I'm just not one of them.
I mean, well, just like on your first point, it's a lot like cooking. You know, like you have something that smells really good. You're like, wow, I'm doing something really good. And I think there's two things that happen.
Right.
We think, maybe it's subconscious, but we think, okay, this track is sounding super good. And because of that, I must be good. And so whatever I add on has a higher potential of making it sound good. And then the other thing is like, oh, this track sounds good, so with some salt it would sound even better. Right? And so we have to really check ourselves on that, because there are so many tracks that I've made where I didn't need to do any polishing on them. Like, they were good as they were. And it's like, you know, like people will say, oh, this track is so good, what if we add this and that? It's like, no, the track is good because it's good.
Right.
You know, just keep it good and keep it minimal. And like when you're talking about over baking, my head immediately went to like over layering.
Right.
You know, so
100%.
Like, yeah, let me do the follow. We're going.
Yeah, we're
following. But yeah, man, so keeping things minimal, letting the food cook itself, is like a form of maturity.
Right.
It's like just letting things be how they are. And it takes less action to do that.
Right.
But we're such people of action when we're actually in that snowball.
Yep.
You know, so we want to keep going. In which case, if you really want to do a lot, then just start working on another track. You know, don't keep on over baking your same track. And that's why a lot of collaborations, artists tend to disagree with each other sometimes in collaborations, because it's it's a bit rare that your second pass to another artist, they'll subtract from it. They'll usually add on top more, right? But a good collaborator knows like, okay, actually, let's keep it minimal in the intro. So I'm going to take out this part and this part. Another thing about subtraction is that it allows you to then build up to something, right? So if you're just you can let your intro be minimal, and then you can bring the same elements you just subtracted in the intro in the build, right? So you didn't even have to do anything.
Right.
And now it's just building up.
Right.
So yeah, even if you do, I mean, over baking is a less bad scenario than under baking, in my opinion, because you can always subtract.
Yeah.
But it's about like being lucky enough to stumble upon that specific arrangement of instruments that works well, and just like letting it be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my thought on that. That's all I have to say about that.
Okay. But so yeah, something came up as you were speaking about that. Yeah, I'm the way that I see what you're saying is kind of being able to structure, like, and also coming back to you doing 3 tracks. I feel like when you do 3 tracks and you kind of go in between, you kind of breathe from one track, you go to the next one, and then you go back to the first one, and it sounds different already even in the end of the day, because you haven't heard it for a little while. And that's the thing. That's why I feel like being able to rotate between things, like working for, and that's just like having palate cleansers. Yeah. Like I that's why I love working for Reality so much, because it gives me, it's a different kind of school, man. I have to make tracks that get to -6 LUFS. That's a lot. And they need to, like, basically, they need to be put straight into a grid, into a show. So it's like, it's completely different to, let's say, a trailer track or an artist track where it needs to build, like it needs to have that feeling of something is coming. And I need to be more strategic. I can put a lot of layers here. I can put less layers here. So I feel like what I hear here is having palate cleansers can really help with that process of creating a lot. Like, I mean,
it depends on your palate cleanser. Like if you're working on like hip hop, for example, that's like a total art of minimalism, because you have the beat, and that's made up of like 4 to 5 elements minimum, maybe even 2 actually minimum, because you just like kick and snare, right? And then maybe like 3 or 4 more. Maybe a pad on top, and then it's good. You know, maybe you have a cool sample on it, but that's a basic beat, and then the poetry sells it, right? And so now, of course, there's more complex beats than that, but the basic beat is that. And when you understand that most music is minimal, then you can apply that into your orchestral stuff, because a really common mistake that I made when I was starting out, and a lot of beginners make, is that we put like multiple melodies on top of each other,
right,
or we just put as much craziness going on at once, and you don't need that. Not at all. Actually, less is more. You know, like there's some famous composers that want like a 200 track template. Which is fine for selection, but some actually really declare that like you have to have 200 layers of instruments. And it's totally wrong, in my opinion. I think you can just get by with like 20 to 30 layers. You know, some of my licensed tracks and theatrical trailers had like maybe 27 instruments total in Keybase.
Wow.
Yeah, because
that's cray. Yeah,
because there's samples that have like 18 French horns on one note. So if you're playing a chord, it's already going to be, 1836.
Yeah, but you know, like that's very non-traditional, because when people present, especially some of the people I've talked to, were saying like every instrument has to have their own channel. And when I saw you like stacking up like the when you were at my place and you were just playing brass like it's piano, I was like, whoa. That's interesting.
It depends on the context and the section of the track and what kind of genre you're doing. Right. Like we're used to hearing brass chords in hip hop, People will play brass chords in
Right.
songs, and it just fits. It fits well with that. It also fits well in climactic parts. Brass doesn't do legato in climactic parts. It's not realistic for it to do that in chords because they have to have a gap to breathe. So that's perfectly fine. Now, if there were brass on its own and they were doing like legato parts and switching articulations and it was just naked brass the whole time, then yeah, you'd probably want them on separate instrument tracks. But no, not for a super climactic section. At that point, it's texture. It's all just texture. And the same thing goes with strings, right? Like if they're completely on their own in the intro, you definitely want separated individual instruments because each one is doing legato.
Right, yeah.
And you need to hear that legato.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it just sounds like a synth. But it's the context of the mix. If you put those instruments into the climax, it doesn't matter. You'd be doing so much work for nothing.
Right.
Unless they're at the forefront melody.
Right.
But if they're just thickening the mix, they're thickening the mix. And that's why the whole less is more mindset is about frequency range. Right? Like you have the brass, which will take up maybe 250 to 300 hertz for that dissonance and to actually hear the mid-low notes to beef up those chords. And then you have the sizzle of the brass, which is in the higher frequencies. And then you'd have the like the string melody, high string, which takes up maybe like 1K to 1K, 1.5, maybe like 2.5. And then higher percussion, which could be even in like 4K. And so all these different instruments like take up a certain frequency, and the bass needs to be somewhere in like 66 to 80 without conflicting with percussion. So as long as all these instruments fill up those frequency ranges, then you'll be good. You'll get a full sound, and you will get a full sound because these sample libraries are ridiculous with how many instruments there are in just a single note.
Right.
With a full orchestra, with less instruments, a live recording, you can get a really full sound, as we both know, listening to a ton of movie soundtracks. So, of course, you could get a full sound. It doesn't need to have like 100 layers of instruments.
Right.
I mean, that's a sign that something's not right with your mixing. If you have to layer all these instruments on top of each other. If you want to do it for experimentation, and there's maybe a slightly thicker, larger than life sound that you can be trying for, go ahead. But it's going to be more of an experimental, unique experiment. It's not going to be like some ideal orchestration. I mean, even in orchestration with live orchestras, like the less is more mindset applies. Like, how can you take this quartet and make the biggest sound possible?
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, there's the layering thing. I mean, even when Hans Zimmer had, what was it, like 4,000 layers on The Dark Knight Rises, and they asked Alan Meyerson, like, how did you deal with 4,000 tracks? He was like, well, I took, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, and I put them into different groups based on their frequency range. And I did, okay, these are the lows, these are the mids, these are the highs. And yeah, it all comes down to like step by step and breaking things down into smaller numbers.
Yeah.
So yeah, man.
How was working, because you did a live, when you were in LA, you did a live recording with Gothic Storm, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, with Dan Graham. And what was that experience?
Oh, that was like a total people experience. That was like learning how to manage, because we had these two orchestrators, really talented orchestrators. We had Jake Diak and Christoph Allisdorfer, and they had these very different personalities, and it could get. It was fun. I mean, everybody got along really well, but sometimes it could get a little bit electric, and it's just learning how to be like, oh no, okay, this person's not really upset. That's just the way that they are.
Like navigating, you're talking about like navigating the energy of doing that kind of work.
Yeah, because it becomes a mixture. Because politics are already in like the whole industry. But yeah, so we already have like these politics in the industry of like, okay, don't go overboard, don't say anything that's going to upset anyone. Be really polite, be kind, put on that mask of being okay with everything, no matter how bad it gets. And that mask actually really helps because it's a stoic mask. But I think that that happening while there's two conflicting parties can be a little bit challenging. And so it ended up being this thing where like you think that someone is I'm trying to be careful with my words here. You think that someone is upset at something, but it's really just the way they react to things in general, right? And so because of the two different dynamics going on, it was like, okay. And then we ended up just like figuring that out, and then we got the orchestration out, and it worked really well. I mean, Dan Graham is an amazing person, and Jake and Christoph and everyone involved were just fantastic and did an amazing job. And I also for assistant I hired Christopher Cano from Tijuana in Mexico to oversee some of the orchestrations as well, and he helped a bit with that, and that was great. And the live session was awesome. I mean, it was like at 2 a.m. LA time, and we were just, Jake and I had like fallen asleep during the break, and they woke up, and we just got back to the second session. We're like, whoa, that was fun. But Bernd Matzak, the engineer, did an amazing job with that. Like he was, he would say these things like, what if we took the, what was it? What if we take the we record softly and then increase the volume in post, and that will increase the warmth of this passage. And I was like, damn, I never would have thought of that, because I don't work with live recordings enough to know that. And so it really is a giant learning process, and you really cannot be a control freak with things in that process. Like you have to be super humble and let people do their job. And I loved it. I thought it was an amazing experience, and I couldn't be more grateful for it. It was a 75-piece orchestra in one of the best halls, some of the best musicians in Europe. Yeah, man, it was good.
That's crazy. That's amazing that, that's amazing that Dan is doing this kind of stuff. It just like shows his commitment, and just, it's business savvy, but it's also, like being able to explore musically and avenues.
He's very keen on the art. Even if trailers can be formulaic, he's keen on discovering that formula and how to stretch that out, or how to tinker with it a bit and make it innovative, and just a really fantastic person to work for. Right, like even if, like for instance, if trailers try to go for less melody, he'll come out with like a melodic album and be like, okay, let's try, like, what if we could make tracks with melody? Because then that puts his album in a unique place. Right. If all the other studios are not doing that, then he'll do that, and it'll have a unique place in the selection. And at the same time, it focuses on the art, and it allows artists to be themselves, really. So he's always been a really cool guy, and I feel that way about Ghostwriter too. Actually, I feel that Ghostwriter is very art focused, but in other genres of music. Right, like with rock, or with like they really fuse different genres together really well. So yeah, overall, just an amazing experience working with a number of libraries the past year, and I would say that it's been a pretty okay ride with that. Just doing as much work as I can, just for different libraries, and they work hard too. So,
what do you think creates success for trailer composers these days versus, the Aquaman days, or Black Widow? Which, by the way, Black Widow, hands down, it's one of my favorite trailer tracks of all time. So.
I think that actually a more contrasting period is the period between Attila Ott's Shredder track and now, because an even longer time ago, right? And when was that? Like 2016. When was that? Yeah, in 2006, 2015, maybe even 14. Where you had Attila Otz make this amazing track, and then it gets into like every commercial, and it got into a couple trailers, and it was very successful track. I think like one of the most successful actually, and that was one track in many placements.
Yeah.
Now it's getting to a point where it's like one track in one major placement.
Yeah.
With some TV spots, hopefully, but not likely. So I think that it's a real game of quantity now. I think a composer should spend his time practicing to get his quality up and his speed up so that he can do as many high quality tracks as he can. Because it's not like you can't really take your time on music anymore. Like publishers want the albums done within a month or 2 months, and once that album's out, it will take a bit of time. Yeah. So you want to make as much music as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And
load it up.
Yeah, really load it up. Like, I mean, I think Mark Petrie has like 5,000 tracks in his PRO. Some like crazy amount. I don't have nearly that amount.
Yeah.
It's like probably, I don't even know.
But I think he has 10 years on you.
Yeah, he's got 10. No, he's a king, man. But yeah, I would say another thing is and this hasn't changed since those two periods actually. It hasn't changed in all of human history. I think that real innovation is not just making something new, because you can't do that. That's an illusion. We can't just make something new. It would just be avant-garde mess, which isn't new to begin with. So you want to bring in something from one world to another world. That's what innovation is to me. If you grew up with a lot of Italian opera, put some of that melodic cadence into your trailer music, or those kind of chord progressions. If you grew up with, or if you just like to listen to folk music, Americana, try to take some of the elements of that and put it into a track. Banjo trailer music, why not? Because that's what real innovation is. And that's what I would suggest that a composer trying to be successful does. We can't keep inbreeding trailer music.
Yeah.
Right? We can't just keep listening to trailer music and then writing more based on that. It makes for great epic music for sure. Yeah. But publishers, supervisors, editors, they really like something fresh and unique while at the same time having that bed of epicness. And if you can find a genre that you like and you want to bring it in and show it to the trailer world, I think that will lead to some success.
I think that's the case with everything, right? Like arguably it's a label can give you a brief, but you're in control of what you do in the DAW, and that's the whole thing is, I feel like, and the whole search for me is being able to bring who I am into a world that wants me to be a certain way, and kind of like rebel in a very, very slight way, like not not go full abstract, or like do free jazz suddenly for trailers. But I mean, there is a bit of free jazz in I think in the Soul trailer by Disney, because it's like it presents when it presents who he is, and also the opener, it's beautiful. But being able to put it in context, I feel like that's the whole thing, the whole journey about it, is being able to kind of to be able to bring it to the front in such a slight way that nobody even knows why they love it so much. I mean, like, take a track like you said something about Americana. I'm like, I feel like a track that is really good to talk about with that is like Old Town Road. Where they took this kind of folky vibe and put it with a rapper, and it just like made crazy waves. And it's just because there was like the sample was inspiring, and then the lyrics were inspiring by themselves, but then they created something so huge because they were innovation. They took exactly what you're saying. They took two things that exists already and put him into one thing that was a hit in the end of the day, that probably made him generational wealth. So
yeah, people love combinations. I mean, combinations make the world. If you look at just how planes fly, just a combination of different mathematical algorithms with different mechanical parts.
And a bunch of dead people.
A bunch of, yeah. Yeah, a combination of bodies,
Yeah. I got so many dead bodies, by the way, next to my studio.
Yeah.
I was trying to do
trying to revive them, make them some composing zombies.
Was trying to make zombie hip hop for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just like I'm still getting there. You may be my next victim.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Sick.
I'm happy to contribute.
When are you flying? You're flying out in a week.
Yeah.
We got to get that in before
let's
that.
Let's get that under. Let's get that happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude. No, I think that it's a bit like you played Kirby.
Never.
Oh, really?
Oh, wait. I mean,
Kirby,
like the
one that
pink?
sucks. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like I played with him only in like Mario Party and stuff like that.
Oh, got you. I didn't know he was in Mario Party. But yeah, he had, in his own games, you have to absorb people, you eat them essentially, and gain their power. And in Kirby 64, you could actually absorb two different powers, and they would become a new power.
Sick.
And that was like the highlight of that game, and people loved that because you could experiment with things and you could see what you like and what you don't like. And that same thing applies to music on a huge level, because we're always combining things. Like, you're never going to sound exactly like Thomas Burgerson.
Right.
That slight difference in your percussion library, even if you only listen to him, those slight differences in your libraries and just the tonalities of things will make it different anyway. Yeah. So why not go full force with that and really experiment and see what you can do? Because there's so much that, yes, is licensed, that's a certain way, but they also want things that are slightly different because they don't want to hear the same track over and over again. So it's just that balance, and that's an issue with a lot of I would say the composing community right now, is that they are not so keen on duality. It seems to be like it's like trailer music. People are like, trailer music isn't music, it's like this thing or that thing. And then there's people who are very like, no, the real music is academic music. And it's like, why can't it just be everything?
Right.
You know, we need everything. Yeah. And a lot of those elements, like I know trailer composers who really study like Henry Mancini's work down to every manuscript note, you know, and they use that in their trailer music. I know trailer composers who can't play an instrument and they're successful. It's just, we're just generating noise, you know, and if we generate noise in the right fashion, then we can make some pretty cool stuff.
Yo, how good was this first part? Phil Lober is such a legend. We hung out a few times here, and I can't wait for y'all to hear the part 2 of this episode, which was as good, if not better, than the first part. If you like the podcast, don't forget to follow the podcast on your platform and rate it. This really helps the podcast. And if you want one-on-one coaching with me, hit me up on socials, on LinkedIn or on my site, and we can talk further from there. Till the next one. Peace.